What's up, guys? It's your boy Spicy Noodles, and I know it has been a hot minute since you have heard my annoying ass voice here on YouTube. But I've been super busy, so I haven't had a chance to make any more deck techs. But I did promise everybody on TikTok the next one I did would be Lord of Pain. So here we are doing Lord of Pain. So, Lord of Pain states he is a 5/5 with Menace. Your opponents cannot gain life. Whenever a player casts their first spell each turn, choose another target player. The Lord of Pain deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to the chosen player. I have a proxy version that I run. There's Art the Clown because I figured that's perfect. As soon as I saw Lord of Pain, that's what I thought of with Art the Clown. So we run Art the Clown. But this deck is designed to not win any friends whatsoever. You blink, you're going to take damage. You breathe, you're taking damage. You want to draw damage. It's just, you're not winning friends with this. So as normal, I have separated the lands from everything else. Run through the lands. Nothing fancy, just basic red and black lands. Now onto the good bits. Alright, starting off with Phyresis. Because if Lord of Pain wasn't bad enough, let's give him Infect. Because if you're new to Commander, Infect gives you poison countered, and if a player has 10 poison counters, they lose the game, so it's not hard to get there at all. And this will cause Lord of Pain to deal damage in the form of poison counters, so you will die much more quickly, rather. Sorry, apparently I can't speak today. We have Painful Quandary. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player loses 5 life unless they discard a card. Helm of the Host, because what is scarier than one Lord of Pain on the field? Multiples. So, there we go. Let's copy them. Sitting on Fire, an enchantment, Convoke. So your creatures can help pay for this spell. So when you basically, if it has Convoke, you can tap creatures as well as mana to help you pay for it because it is a costly spell. But if a source I control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage instead. So again, you want to breathe, that's a lot of damage. Polluted Bonds. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under opponent's control, that player loses 2 life and I gain 2 life. You want land? Take damage. Valgavoth, Howler of Souls. Flying, ward, pay 2 life. Excuse me. Whenever an opponent loses life for the first time during each of their turns, put a 1/1 counter on Valgavoth and draw a card. You guys are going to take a lot of damage, so he's going to get big. O'Hare Axonil. Trample, if a red source I control would deal an amount of non-combat damage less than his power to an opponent, that source deals damage equal to his power instead. So therefore, oh hey, cool, you say with Lord of Pain on the field, you cast a 2-mana spell. Then that 2 damage a player would normally take would then become 4. So it's just a way to up that damage a bit. Breath of Malfegor. It deals 5 damage to each opponent. Very straightforward. Soul Rim, could every deck need one. Terminate. Destroy a target creature, can't be regenerated. Mana Barbs. This is, my pods love this. Whenever a player taps a land for mana, Mana Barbs deals 1 damage to that player. So not only are you going to take damage for playing the land, you're going to take damage for using it as well. Basilisk Collar. Let's give, gives an equipped creature Death Touch and Lifelink. So let's give Lord of Pain Lifelink, so when you take damage, I gain life. Massacre Worm. When this creature enters, creatures your opponent's control get -2/-2 until end of turn. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, that player loses 2 life. Murder. Very straightforward card. Destroy a target creature. Whip of Erebos. Creatures I control have lifelink. The second part I don't care about, but it gives all my damage dealing creatures lifelink. So I'll gain all the life you lose. Dictate of the Twin Gods. If a source I control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. Chandra's Incinerator. Spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of non-combat damage dealt to opponents this turn. Trample, whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, Chandra's Incinerator deals that much damage to target creature or planeswalker that player controls. So when Lord of Pain hits you, I can also deal that much to one of your players or your creature or planeswalkers. Demonic Tutor, just lets me go search for a card, put it in my hand. Blood Artist. Whenever Blood Artist or another creature dies, target player loses a life and I gain a life. Sadistic Shell Game. Starting with the next opponent in turn order, each player chooses a creature I don't control and then destroy those creatures. Sir Conrad the Grim. Whenever another creature dies, or a creature is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, Sir Conrad the Grim deals 1 damage to each opponent. Then I can pay 1 and a blight to make everybody mill a card. So, creatures in graveyard, everybody takes damage. Butcher's Cleaver. As long as the equipped creature is human, it has lifelink. So, more stuff to give Lord of Pain lifelink. Karvek the Merciless. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, Karvek the Merciless deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to any target. Razorkin Needlehead. He has first strike during my turn. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Razorkin Needlehead deals 1 damage to them. So this would pair up again with O'Hare Axonel because he's a red source that's dealing 1 damage. So with O'Hare Axonel on the field, he would deal 4 damage instead of 1. Twin Flame Tyrant, a flyer. If you source you control would deal damage to an opponent or permanent, an opponent controls, it deals double that damage instead. Grab the Prize. As an additional cost to cast a spell, discard a card. Draw 2 cards. If the discarded card wasn't a land card, Grab the Prize deals 2 damage to each opponent. Solfim, Mayhem Dominus. If a source you control would deal non-combat damage to an opponent or player, it deals double that damage instead. We don't care about that, we just want the damage amping ability. Feed the Swarm. Destroy target creature or enchantment an opponent controls, you lose life equal to that permanent's mana value. Underworld Dreams. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Underworld Dream deals 1 damage to that player. Sanguine Bond. Yes, if you're familiar with Magic, I am that asshole that runs this combo, especially in this deck. So Sanguine Bond, whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So for the new people, I will set this aside because we will come back to that combo when we get to that card. Blood Pact. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Macabre Waltz. Return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, then discard a card. Suspended Sentence. This one is a lot of fun because it causes panic. So, destroy a target creature an opponent controls. That player loses 3 life. Exile Suspended Sentence with 3 time counters on it. So, with the time counters, each turn that passes, you take a time counter off. When it reaches 0, this card comes back and plays again. Repeat the process. So, every 3 turns, something is going to die. Wound Reflection. At the beginning of each end step, each opponent loses life equal to the life they lost this turn. Blasphemous Act. The spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. Blasphemous Act deals 13 damage to each creature. Heartless Hidetsugu. Tap him. Heartless Hidetsugu deals damage to each player equal to half that player's life total rounded down. Vial Smasher the Fierce. Whenever you cast your first spell each turn, choose an opponent at random. Vial Smasher the Fierce deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to the player or planeswalker that player controls. Bloodseeker. Whenever a creature an opponent controls enters, you may have that opponent lose 1 life. Bedevil. Destroy a target artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Mask of Griselbrand. Equipped creature has flying and lifelink. When equipped creature dies, you may pay X life, where X is its power. If you do, draw X cards. Again, we're just trying to give Lord of Pain as much lifelink as possible. Unstoppable Slasher. Death Touch. When Unstoppable Slasher deals combat damage to a player, they lose half their life rounded up. When Unstoppable Slasher dies, if it had no counters on it, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control with 2 stun counters on it. So stun counter meaning it wouldn't untap for as long as the stun counters are there. So every time you go to your untap stuff, you take a stun counter off. When you take all the stuns off, then you can actually untap and use him. Rakdos Charm. Choose 1 to exile target player's graveyard, destroy target artifact, or each creature deals 1 damage to its controller. This is really good against token decks. You have somebody has a shit ton of goblins out. You play this. Each one of those goblins is going to deal with damage to its controller. Fiery Emancipation. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals triple that damage to that permanent or player instead. Combustible Gear Hulk. When Combustible Gear Hulk enters, target opponent may have you draw 3 cards. If the player doesn't, you mill 3 cards. Then Combustible Gear Hulk deals damage to that player equal to the total mana value of those cards. Vandal Blast. Destroy a target artifact you don't control. Or you can overload it for 5 and cast the spell and then change the target to each. So you would destroy all artifacts you don't control. Overlord of the Boiler Bilges. His impending cost, basically you can cast it for that. It'll have 4 time counter and blah, 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 blah. But anyway, when it enters or attacks, it deals 4 damage to any target. So it's just more added damage. Mogis, God of Slaughter. Indestructible. As long as your devotion to black and red is less than 7, Mogis isn't a creature. So these pips are your devotion. So whatever's on the board on your field, say you had this guy and the Boiler Bilges on here, your devotion would be 4. And since he's not a creature, somebody says, hey, destroy all creatures. Well, he's not a creature. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, Mogis deals 2 damage to that player unless they sacrifice a creature. Star Athlete. Whenever Star Athlete attacks, choose up to 1 target non-land permanent. Its controller may sacrifice it. If they don't, Star Athlete deals 5 damage to that player. So either take life or lose a creature. Indulgent Tormentor. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card unless target opponent sacrifices a creature or pays 3 life. Chaos Warp. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of the library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. So basically it's a gamble. I can cast this to get rid of one of your creatures or enchantments or something. They shuffle it, draw a card. If it's a permanent, come to the battlefield. So I could help the board get rid of something or make it worse, depending on what you draw into. Chandra, Awakened Inferno. She's a Planeswalker. She cannot be countered. So I don't think we've talked about Planeswalkers yet, but these are your loyalty abilities. So each one of these depends on how many loyalty counters you either add or take away. So for +2, that's the only one we really care about on here. But +2, each opponent gets an emblem at the beginning of your upkeep. This emblem deals 1 damage to you. So I can keep stacking that every turn as long as Chandra's on the field and stack up the emblem. So just at the start of your turn, you'll take 2, 3, 4 damage just for starting your turn. I told you, this deck does not make friends. Cataract Parasite. Whenever an opponent draws a card, if you control a red permanent, you may have Cataract Parasite deal 1 damage to that player. So as long as I have something red on the board as well, you draw a card, take damage. Shielded the Apocalypse. Death Touch. Whenever you draw a card, I gain 2 life. Whenever an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. Swiftfoot Boots, just a way to keep Lord of Pain safe on the battlefield. Thought Vessel, so I have no hand size. Exquisite Blood. Here's the other piece of that combo. Whenever an opponent loses life, you gain that much life. So when you pair that with this, it kills the table. Because they're going to gain life, or I'm going to gain life off of something. They'll lose that much life. They'll lose life, triggering this one to gain it, and I'll gain it, triggering this one. So it never ends until the table is dead. Spiteful Visions. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card. Whenever the player draws a card, Spiteful Vision deals 1 damage to that player. Sower of Discord. He's a flyer. When he enters the battlefield, I choose 2 players. Whenever damage is dealt to one of those chosen players, the other chosen player also loses that much life. Arcane Signet, just a mana rock. Fate Unraveler. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Fate Unraveler deals 1 damage to that player. Nightshade Harvester. Whenever a land an opponent controls enters, that player loses a life, and I put a 1/1 counter on Nightshade Harvester. So you're going to take damage, and she is going to get bigger. Hearthburn Battler. He has haste, so he can attack immediately. Whenever a player casts their second spell each turn, Hearthborn Battler deals 2 damage to target opponent. Lightning Greaves, another way to keep him Lord of Pain safe. And the Scrawling Crawler. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player draws a card. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player loses a life. So there we have Lord of Pain. Take damage for existing, I guess. But anyway, like, comment, share, subscribe if you're not. Follow me on the TikTok because I'm much more active there. Yeah, keep a lookout if you like these videos because I've got more decks and I like making videos. So peace out, guys. Have a good day.